Welcome to MSP Unplugged, episode number 8, Remote Management for an IoT World. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss different ways to run your IT business, whether it's managed services, consulting, break fix, or anything in between. Let me introduce the co-host. We have Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. Paco, how you doing?
Oh, hey, I'm doing well.
Very good. And also we have Giancarlo Fanelli from Domotz. How you doing?
Hello, everybody. It's fine.
Good to have you. And also JB Fowler from Domotz.
Hey,
how you doing, JB?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here, actually. Very excited to be here.
Good to have you guys. And I'm excited to hear about your product and a little bit about your backgrounds. But before we do that, let's go ahead and go into where we share a tip or a story that we could learn from. Paco, you're up.
Yep. So it's an oldie but a goodie. The one tip I have is actually this tool that we talked about way back when. Derek over at FireLogic actually had introduced this to us. It's the DataVac duster. I was in dire need to bring this thing into a network deployment that I had to go this weekend to clean up. And they are a laminating company, so there's dust everywhere, and especially where the closet is, you know, there's no real good filtering thing left on there, and I'm still trying to figure out that part there. So we actually put up a new rack and so forth, but the old server and the new server with the networking equipment was just dusty as all heck. So I figured I wanted to take care of that. So popped out this thing, and it's literally probably about that size here, long cord, and it just blows out all the dust that you can find, and it's super powerful, just like a leaf blower. So essentially I bought this, I think whenever Derek was on so many years ago, and it just replaced the compressed airs, having to purchase compressed air every single time. So I think it was like 60, 70 bucks on Amazon, picked it up, and it's been with me ever since. So that's my tip for those that are trying to dust out pretty much anything. I just actually cleared out a couple computers and servers today because I brought it to the office. DataVac, that's going to be my tool and tip for this week.
It's funny that they call it DataVac because I have one here in the office too, and it's really a blower. It's not, right. It doesn't suck anything up.
I was going to ask that question, Jeff, because I was having visions of my little 12-ounce Radio Shack can that I had back in the 80s. And the fact that it's a blower rather than a vacuum just makes me laugh. So,
yep. And it's one of those things where I don't care what type of vacuum cleaner you use, you will never get the amount of dust out of a computer chassis that you can if you blow it out. I mean, it goes everywhere, and you probably shouldn't do it indoors. I still take mine down to the garage, open up the side of the case, blow it out. My kids do the same thing. So it just it works out real well. But you definitely for sure get a lot of the dust out. Now, it's funny because one of my kids was just asking about my computer chassis today, and I have I'd say pretty good sized fans on there that roll very, very slowly. So I pick up very little dust in my chassis. And so it's kind of nice, but I don't have to do it as often. But on theirs, they probably every 3 to 6 months, they get that thing, and there's dust everywhere. So, yep, DataVac, I love it. It's great, and it's better than using a leaf blower, which we all learned from Kerry Holzman many, many moons ago, and it worked great. I'm going to tell you, it worked great until I found that little DataVac thing, and been using it ever since. All right, JB, do you have a tip or story we could learn from?
You know, I do have one. It's a little bit of a generic one, but it's something that I have to say, just to let you guys know, I'm happily married for the last 20 years, have 2 boys. One just turned 15, so we're getting ready for driving. The other one just turned 12. They're going through those stages. I'll just leave it at that. But the one thing that we got together as a family and listened to on a road trip was a podcast. And this podcast was called The Happiness Lab by Dr. Laurie Santos. I highly recommend anybody listen to that. There's I think there's 12 or 13 podcasts right now. They're 30 to 45 minutes each. The thing that I liked about them is that they're fairly generic. They are talking about the science of happiness and what makes us happy. And for me as an engineer by trade, I really like the analytics side of what they bring to it. Dr. Santos is I believe she's a Yale professor. And they had this large study that they did that started, oh, sorry, I should say a class that she was doing. And it's amazing how many thousands of students have taken this. And it got so popular that they ended up putting it directly into podcasts. And I love it. You hear about everything from, of course, how we think about money, to how we think about friendships and connections, to even how we think about choices. And I find it to be quite fascinating. And I would encourage anybody that's listening to this podcast to listen to that one as well.
That is a great tip. And I'll tell you what, the one thing that people need in their lives is more happiness.
It's true. Very
I'm listening
true.
to
That's
that as we speak tonight, because mine is going from 9 to 10 and she acts like she's getting into a teenager. And good Lord, you only know that. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Good.
That's an excellent one. I will definitely bring that one up. For my family too, because sounds good. All right. And we'll put that in the show notes so everybody can get the link to that. I'm sure it's out there on all your favorite podcatchers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Giancarlo, I would be remiss in if you want to pass, that's fine. But do you have anything that you'd like to share at this time?
Yeah, it's very simple thing by a guy that lives abroad. So I'm clearly Italian, and I live in US since last 2 years and a half. So I have two kids. They start learning English when we moved to the US, and they were 2 and 4 at that time. Now they're 4 and 6. And let me say that until like 1 year ago, I was super scared about the fact that they didn't speak English very well. So we were trying to watch TV always in English because they were attending school, pre-K, kindergarten, and they were a little bit ahead of the other guys and the other kids, no? But we are now at the time they start speaking in English each other all the time. They play in English. So they are tending to forget their native language, which is Italian. So I was trying to figure out how can I watch TV in Italian now. And apparently, if I go to Netflix, if I go to any other streaming TV, even TV online, which usually are for free in Italy on the web, you cannot access from US. So I had to look around, and one of the best things I'm appreciating from technology now is a VPN to one of the servers in Italy, and to start streaming even either Netflix or even free TV in Italy through that VPN. And that's what I'm appreciating now as an Italian abroad.
Nice.
For my kids, basically.
Very
Like,
cool.
there's a lot of people on this podcast that can probably set up a VPN, but not as easily as we're going to talk about later today, right, Giancarlo?
Oh yeah, I'm using that as well.
Yeah, because you would think that I remember I actually traveled last year to Korea for a couple weeks for my daughter's wedding, and I had VPN service hooked up on my computer before I left. I set everything up, and I think I was using one of the free VPN services, and I was doing it through my own network. So I had VPN. I had it set up in my router, but I never flipped the bit to actually turn the thing on. So I had to remote in, flip the bit, turn it on, and no problem. It started working after that. But yeah, what a pain, because you're going like, why is this not working? Wait, the IP address I'm pulling is from South Korea.
Somewhere else.
Yeah, I like easy when it comes to things like that, because if it's not easy, people will not use it.
Correct.
All right.
True.
All right, mine is I want to give a shout out to Darren Ney. Now, for those that don't know who Darren Ney is, he does pulse printing and promotions, and he did a couple things for us. Number one, he put together our album art for this particular show and has done a fantastic job. He's done my business cards. He's also done the banners for TechCon Unplugged, and he did an excellent job on all the above. So he asked me to share one of his. He did this all pro bono too, except for the business cards. I did pay for those, but a lot of the stuff he just wanted to help out the service. And what are you laughing about, Paco?
Nothing. Keep going.
Anyways, but he is an excellent businessman and loves the printing and promotion. He used to do computer repair and things back in the past. but he's really concentrating on this now. So if you can go to businesscardsonly.com, you can see what business cards he has available. And then if you shoot him a note, he can basically make whatever you want. You just kind of tell him, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Maybe here's a headshot or something like that. And yes, real people do use headshots on their business cards. If you don't, it's sometimes kind of creepy. But it's kind of good to have your face out there, because especially in this business, when you walk up to a person's door and they go, yeah, you look like your business card, or you look like your picture online. Because in today's day and age, a lot of people don't know. They've never seen you before. So for this business, I think it's very important to have your photo shot out there. I know real estate agents do it all the time, where everybody's like, oh, that's a real estate trick. No, it's just common sense. So anyways, but yeah, go to businesscardsonly.com and we'll have a link in the show notes to go there and check that out. And plus, if you get a hold of him, he can do all kinds of anything you need printed, he can do. He did our tablecloth for TechCon Unplugged and a couple other things. So very glad to have him on board and helping out with that stuff.
Can he make us look 10, 15 years younger on those cards too?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, just use a 10-year-old
He
picture.
did wonders on Jeff's.
Exactly. You know what? Mine probably is 10 years old at this point. Thanks, Paco. I just turned 50 on the 28th, so,
Oh, that's right.
yes.
Happy belated birthday, Jeff.
Thank you.
Wait,
I turned
February?
Yep.
28th? Like,
February 28th.
you just missed leap year by like a day.
Exactly.
Maybe it was a few years, but
Yeah, I turned 50. I feel 25 and I act 12. So there you go.
Ain't that the truth?
All right, let's take a quick break before we get into our main topic today. Join us for the 2020 annual TechCon Unplugged, bringing the community together. This is what we do. Get away from your business for a weekend of learning, fun, and some new relationships in a getaway retreat. Join like-minded business owners to help your IT business thrive. Hear from experts and get one-on-one time with peers facing the same challenges you are. Walk away with concrete action items to take your business to the next level. It is September 25th through the 27th, 2020, and it's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Get your tickets today over at TechConUnplugged.com. You also get your hotel rooms and all that kind of stuff. $115 a night, can't beat it. For a few $100s, you can come on out and hang out with a bunch of like-minded people that are willing and freely sharing the information that they have learned over either a lot of years, or even some of us can learn from some of the newer people that come in and actually have fresh ideas, because the days of, hey, get off my lawn, those just don't go very far. So anyways, TechConUnplugged.com. All right. So today we are going to talk about Domotz, and I learned did I pronounce it correctly?
indeed you did.
Okay, awesome. I'm 2 for 2. So anyways, what I want you to do, let's start with JB. If you could just tell a background of where you came from and how you got to where you're at now.
Oh, it's actually a really, really good story. So Domotz was started back in 2015 timeframe. In fact, Giancarlo was employee number 1, and I'm happy to say that. He's great. He's a hard worker. He's amazing. But when we first got started, it was built upon an idea of how could we take some of these more complex remote monitoring and management tools and make it easier for, I guess I would say, a more common user or somebody who is not a networking expert to gain access or visibility into the systems that they're monitoring. I will say the primary focus at the time were for smaller networks, things that may have been small, medium businesses to even residential applications that were out there. Giancarlo helped build a team with our 2 founders. I will say that our founder, he was traveling quite a bit. And one of the things that he needed to do was to be able to gain access to his house, whether it was for VPN reasons or being able to fix issues in his home when he was gone. that always perturbed him, and he wanted something that was a little bit more, let's call it automated, that would alert him when something went down, that he could then go in and easily access power cycle systems, things of that nature. When we showed up to CES in 2016, and this is one of those, call it get lucky stories, but we found out that one of our beta users during the 2015, early 2016 timeframe was actually somebody from one of our first customers, which happened to be Best Buy. And they ended up bringing over their team and at our CES booth and saying, hey guys, we need to look at this and see how we can leverage this in our ecosystem, in our environment. And I feel comfortable saying this because we've had press releases around this, but Best Buy ended up being one of our first major customers that leveraged Domotz for remote monitoring and management of all of their higher end homes that they were automating. So this gave their team direct access into homes that were based under an SLA or a service level agreement that they could then, rather than do truck rolls, they could remotely access, remotely repair, reboot systems, even get to the point where they could reprogram systems all through Domotz. Since then, we have continued to innovate in a lot of AV and networking spaces. And some of the things that I think we're going to be talking about, you'll see how this fits really well into IT MSPs, into commercial integration jobs that are doing a lot of audio video systems, even retail establishments where you're trying to monitor not only the network itself, but all of the different types of systems that are on that environment. You know, Giancarlo, you're the one that rode through that ride. Do you want to add anything that I may have missed?
No, absolutely. Yeah, as you said, I mean, that was a lucky meeting, now with the Best Buy. But on the other side, it drive us through the path of adding more and more integration into devices, mainly used in the home systems. And this was initially, I mean, we spent like the first 1 year doing that kind of integration. But we discovered that the same kind of methodology or systems that we were touching in home automation system or audio video based networks, which actually was also used in the commercial space. And then from the same concept, the same infrastructure that we put in place could have been used also in a more IT or MSP space. For instance, we were touching a lot networking devices, switches, and we were using a PoE ports of the switches to reboot audio video devices. But with the same methodology, we are basically using the same PoE ports of the same switches, even a high end for IT, to reboot a security camera, for instance, or access control system. So
Wi-Fi access points as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was a lucky meeting with Best Buy that drives the first kind of integration, but then and it drove us in that period in the residential space, but then we evolved in more commercial space and IT MSP.
There was no doubt that what we had, kind of found ourselves in with respect to residential and some commercial integration applications, we realized that the IT MSP side of things actually needed to be aware of all these AV equipment and devices as well. It became very clear, and I am curious if you guys agree or disagree with me. I assume you'll agree, but there's this merger happening with respect to IT departments and audio video folks, as well as security. Everything from building access control to video security cameras, as Giancarlo pointed out, to digital signage, to, of course, unified communication. Yeah, exactly. Voice over IP and video conferencing systems. All of those things are now network connected, and they're residing on the IT department's main switches, whether they're Cisco or Extreme Networks or Hewlett Packard or Juniper or whatever they are. They have a bunch of IoT devices that they need to be aware of. And one of the amazing things that Domotz does, and we'll get some time to talk about this, but we bring awareness to the IT department about what are all those extraneous MAC addresses that are sitting on my network. What are they? We leverage, in fact, through some of our initial customers, we decided to go ahead and purchase a company or acquire a company called Fing. I am assuming that many of your listeners of this podcast are quite aware of Fing. It's a mobile network analyzer. We acquired it because of its ability to take a MAC address and then turn it into not only a manufacturer, but also a make, model, and type of a device. So we've essentially, with Fing and using the crowdsourcing features of Fing, we have over 35 billion devices in our database that we can now start to show make, model, and type of. So we have an extensive database, and Domotz leverages Fing. Although we consider Fing a sister company, we leverage that to enrich all the data that we discover.
That's great, because I tell you what, nothing's more frustrating than to log into your router or wireless access point and go,
yes,
what the heck is that? What's my network? I have no idea. And so it's nice to be able to put a face to that name, so to speak.
Yeah, I was going to say that even when I deployed mine for the first time, it was refreshing to see all the devices that were on my network, and specifically with the smart devices that I have as well. So I tested this in my home along with in the office here as well. And the cool part that I love is for manufacturers like Wyze, for example, they have multiple devices under their umbrella of products that they offer. Domotz actually can determine if that Wyze product is a camera, is it a light bulb, is it etc. Whereas a lot of other network discovery tools will only tell you the manufacturer sometimes, but they won't tell you what it really is because they can't figure out what from the MAC address is, what it's from. So I can go ahead and figure, all right, I'm going to throw this into this reservation. I'm going to figure out what's going on. But now I understand a little bit more what's going on in the network, and having a true being able to identify all the devices on the network right when I load it up and for initial time, along with any devices that are coming on the network as well.
Yeah, Paco, the way you're describing that is exactly right. One of the things that managed service providers do with respect to Domotz in this discovery, and you touched on an important point. Not only do we, give you the make, model, and type, but we also give it a classification. So if it is a security camera, or it is an automation system, or it is a smart display or a TV, we classify that, which makes it easier for a managed service provider to start bucketizing what these devices are. Now, if you're on an extremely flat network and you're not using VLANs or subnets, then you're just going to have a lot of IP addresses and a lot of devices that get classified. But now with Domotz, you can start to organize your structure a little bit more, and it really helps you with configuration of the network.
Yep, exactly. I think so. Kind of how I found out about you guys was we were a bunch of us in the community were attending a Channel Pro last year in Chicago. And there was a session that Mark Smith and Luis Alvarez were doing at the time about how do you make money off of IoT. And I just remember, and it's such a distinct thing from that show, was they were going through this conversation. They were mentioning how how Luis was implementing SNMP technologies, trying to figure out everything, talked up the big game. He was like, this is the 3 tools we're using. We're using Auvik, which a lot of us know that, it is a premium for that service, and they do pretty good at a lot of the networking and discovery type of things for SNMP. But then he mentioned Domotz, and then everyone kind of perked up, and he kind of went through on how it's been assisting him and how much money he's getting from his clients by using Domotz specifically. And he says, and all I'm paying is $19 a month. And all of a sudden you heard everyone in the room, basically, once it was vendor hall time, bum rushed the booth, and literally everyone was at that booth just trying to understand what Domotz was about, how do you get into it, go from there. And that's when I originally heard about you guys, but it wasn't until probably a good 6 months later that I had time to really figure out, okay, I got a couple of requirements that I need for my network. I got to figure out what's on it. I got to figure out how I can better understand things that are on the network. How do I figure out when someone plugs something into a network and I get a real-time alert to figure out what's going on? And, you know, and what don't I know about? You know, how should I figure out, you know, about security cameras? How do I make sure that my systems are in real time secured? Does this thing have a two-factor authentication? Am I able to, you know, does support have access to my system all the time from Domotz, or can I flip a switch on to allow them to see things that are in the system? It was a lot of these things that were just questions that I was trying to figure out. And as I kind of went through one by one, it just was check boxes every single time. And it just the easeability of being able to not only utilize all those things in the network, but able to connect to some of those devices as well very easily, without having to set up, you know, the web interface or the remote access management on that device, having the ability to do so with a device like Domotz, which is very flexible to install. And I'm sure we'll go into that later on, but these were some of the things that brought me to the attention of Domotz and what I've been doing in my network. I just put one in this past Saturday. I was talking to you guys in the pre-show that I just logged in right now just to see what was new, and I forgot that UPnP was on. So ended up turning that off, and that was that. So one of those things that it kind of saved me at that point. But I'll digress and go over to Jeff, because that was a lot of information that I kind of blew by, but we'll go from there.
I want to point out that I remember that Channel Pro event because I was at that booth getting bum rushed by all these people. I'm like, okay, there's only two of us. How are we going to possibly answer these 20 or 30 guys that were all here at one time? It was a good day. In fact, we did 4 of those different shows, and this was the first time we had really showcased Domotz at a true MSP event, and I think it went quite well. So I appreciate what you said there, Paco.
So let's go into a little bit about maybe we kind of did a high level view of what Domotz does, and let's kind of take a deep dive into some of its feature sets and things that it can help people with, so people have an understanding of what they're thinking about when it comes to, you know, whether you call it a sales pitch or whatever. But I mean, there's definitely some things that people are going to want to ask questions about, and obviously they'll be able to. We'll have all the links and stuff at the end of the show. But for right now, what's some of the things that Domotz can do for the MSP out there for their client base?
Let me touch on it. Let's call it the elevator pitch. Let me spend a minute or so on that, and then we'll dive into some of the things that we see benefits from. And I think Giancarlo can add some, let's call it technical flair to that as well. Domotz, first and foremost, we view ourselves as a remote network monitoring and management tool. Our 2 major value props for a managed service provider is really to bring operational efficiency to their business. And when we talk about operational efficiency, especially for a service provider who's not sitting on site all the time, it's about how can we help eliminate truck rolls. It's about how can we lower the costs by helping reduce expensive tools. Paco pointed out that we're only $19 a month. And I'm sure when we say $19 a month, a lot of guys are saying, you mean per device, or do you mean per subnet? How does that work? And we're talking $19 a month per agent that is deployed. And that is quite inexpensive.
Yeah, worth to mention that in our language, the agent is actually one network. So because in the remote monitoring solution, the agent sits on every single endpoint, but in our case, it's a remote monitoring agentless. So what we call agent is basically the scanner of the network. So the software,
I refer to it as a network agent.
Yeah, exactly, the network agent. Perfect.
Network that it scans, right? And it can sit on multiple VLANs and look at subnets. So we'll talk about that in details. The other thing that we do, the second really key value proposition, is the proactive monitoring. What we want to provide to a managed service provider is really the ability to understand when a device or when a system on that network falls offline, or when it's in a troubled state. So that way, the service provider who's supposed to be managing and monitoring that for their clients know about it before their customer does. Nobody likes to get the phone call that says, hey, the network's down, or the wireless isn't working, or this conference room isn't functioning properly. What we try to do is provide you as a service provider with information about that before that dreaded phone call. So that's really, I'd say, the two key value props that we have with our product. I want to speak a little bit to your question, Jeff, about some of the services that we can offer. First and foremost, our tool is really built like a NOC, or a network operations center. There's this high-level view of all the different sites that you may be managing. To Giancarlo's point, it's the network agents that are out on your for all your clients. We're monitoring those with simple red, yellow, green status. So it's very easy for you to understand of all your clients when you may have one that's in a more troubled state than another one. And it allows you to prioritize who you need to focus on. When it comes to going into each individual agent and what you can do within a network, I want to point out a couple things. One, we take security very seriously, and security is extremely important to us. Everything that we do, between whether it's your laptop and the cloud, or the cloud back into your client's network, that's secure and encrypted, and it's encrypted in multiple ways. So that's important to us. Paco pointed out, and he's exactly right, we implement things like two-factor authentication. We want to make sure that it's you or your team that's getting on that network, not somebody else. The last thing we're doing is wanting to put a hole in anybody's network. So leveraging security like that is very important to us. Another thing that's a major benefit, and a lot of service providers and integrators see value in this, is the ability to automatically map the network. So the network agent, that single piece of software that's sitting on the network, it's actually communicating over SNMP with your managed switches. And we're leveraging information from those switches to be able to understand which MAC addresses or which devices are connected to those ports of that switch. And we use some more advanced driver capabilities on our side to be able to look at even wireless access points. In the end, you're built with a nice network topology that shows which devices are connected to which ports, which wireless devices are connected to which wireless access points. We even go as far as showing things like signal strengths between the wireless access points and the devices they're communicating, or their endpoints. So there's a lot of capability there. And then the last thing I want to say, and then Giancarlo, I want you to touch on some stuff here. When it comes to looking at the network, we do have some features, and Paco mentioned one of them, which has to do with what we call perimeter scanning. Perimeter scanning allows us to look from the cloud back into the network, or back towards that network agent, and see, are there any ports that may be open on the front end? Most managed service providers are dealing with high-end firewalls, so they have a very good understanding of which ports are open and which ones are not. Think of this as a secondary health check that's out there. And then the other thing that we do, and this is more important when it comes to maybe smaller networks, where you may not have the advanced firewalls, or you may be using more of the ISP's router or modem if your client is doing that, but looking to see if things like UPnP are enabled. So looking from the inside back out, because as you guys know, while UPnP provided a lot of benefits when it came to ease of accessing the internet, it also is bad these days, because people can use that for cyber hacking, if you will. So having a tool like Domotz that's looking for these types of high-level perimeter issues is something that we do. And Giancarlo, I'll tee it up to talk about security and connectivity if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, thanks GP for that. Yeah, I was going to cover that because Paco just mentioned that he discovered UPnP protocol was enabled, and that's something that GP is funny, because we discovered also in your network the first day we launched that capability. You had UPnP enabled. Any kind of devices from inside the network could open ports on your gateway. And that's funny because a lot of gateway manufacturers, they have UPnP enabled by default. And that's unfortunate. I want to cover one thing that I see on chat as well, somebody is raising. Domotz is not supposed to be a replacement for the traditional RMM agent. So it's not an RMM for endpoints. It's not an RMM for desktop or laptop. It doesn't allow you to do patch management or monitoring the application or services running on a Windows PC. It's something that sits aside of those RMM solutions. There is just one, what we call network agent per network, that scans the entire network, monitor all the devices, so it keeps all together. So you have agents on every single endpoint, which are for the traditional RMM solution, and then you have one single Domotz software or Domotz agent for bringing all the other devices together, like the security camera we mentioned, like all the Wi-Fi access points, switches, and router, firewall, everything. And we collect all those information. One thing that GB was mentioning is that out of every single switch, we can get information about what device is connected to, which device is connected to which port of the switch. And by knowing that, we can build basically a topology of the network. And that's what we do. So starting from those information, one of the first things you will see in Domotz is a topology map of the network as it has been discovered. And then you can dive into any single device. We were touching before that when we start Domotz, one of the benefits of Domotz was to reduce track roll. And in a world more related to the OT world rather than the IT world, no? In a world where OT devices have trouble, usually even an engineer, to resolve the issue, the fastest way to resolve an issue on an OT device, a security camera, for instance, it's the reboot. No, it's the reboot of even a hard reboot, power reboot. So one of the earliest thing that we brought into Domotz is the control of power of devices. And we do through 3 different levels. So the very soft one, we have specific drivers for different protocols to send software commands to the device to be rebooted. And then we have the control of the PoE ports of switches through which you can reboot access point, Wi-Fi access point. You can reboot, which usually are powered through PoE ports or security camera. And then the third level, much more really power, we control also the power through PDU, power distribution units. And we support 20 different brands, so hundreds of models of different PDUs, even UPS, even, I'm not giving any names, but even UPS have the capability of controlling the port or the outlet of the UPS through Domotz. Again, from remote. You can, in theory, you can even reboot the entire network from Domotz. That's something that I wanted to bring as a way to resolve issue in a more OT world. In the IT world, you usually tend to understand the issue, and then as a last step, you reboot. But in the OT world, I can assure that the first step you do, especially if you're in a hurry, you just reboot and then you try to understand what happened.
You know, everybody laughs at the thing where you say, "Have you tried turning it off and turning it on again?" And that's an actual thing. I mean, I'll give a short little story. It even works in the non-IT world. My son, who's in the U.S. Army, is a helicopter mechanic, and he was deployed somewhere, which I cannot name. And he was in the hangar, and one of the pilots came in and said, "Hey, did you find out what was wrong with my bird?" He looked at him, he goes, serious as all get out. "Sir, have you tried turning it off and turning it on again?" Which the officer was not very happy to.
The multi-million dollar helicopters still need to be power cycled. That's great to know.
But, it is one of those things where a lot of people will go to that. I mean, really, how many times does rebooting a device fix the problem? More than we would probably care to admit. So that is an excellent first step. And having control over different devices like that to be able to power cycle them, I think that's awesome.
And Jeff, there's definitely times when, let's call it in a mission critical situation. For instance, if your client or your customer is trying to get a conference call started and the system's not up and running, sometimes power cycling is the best way to fix that quickly and then go back and troubleshoot it later. But we all know it. We all do it. So
yeah.
I think a big piece too on, the great thing about Domotz is that you can there's different flavors of being able to deploy this to a site. You have your appliance, which you can plug into the network, and it kind of has already the software pre-installed and kind of log it into the portal and kind of go that route. Or you can install it on a web server or even on a Synology NAS drive. On that, can you kind of go into more of like the flexibility or the feasibility on kind of doing any of those and the benefits of having that flexibility?
Yeah, absolutely. Giancarlo, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the key points from Domotz. I mean, the scanner, the agent, our agent is basically just a software that you can install on a Linux machine, on a Windows machine, or a server. We have Docker version. We have even an image for Amazon Web Services, an MEI for that one. We have packages for NAS drives like Synology or QNAP, package for Raspberry Pis, and our own appliance, which we call Domotz Box, which goes with the agent inside. It's just a way to make it faster for some MSP or some integrator in general to deploy a network which might be even let's say never touched, never been on site. So just to give you an example, some of our customers, they just use this Domotz box. They configure the box in their own offices. They send to their customers, and they tell the customer just to plug into the router, and that's it. They've done. They have the entire network under their control. One of the examples, the NJB can get that. We have a restaurant chain among our customers. They have like 200 restaurant fast food services in the US. They have their own IT department internal to the company. They cannot visit all the 200 restaurants to just see how things are going. So what they did, they purchased our Domotz boxes. They configure it in their office. They ship to the restaurant. They let the restaurant manager to plug there, and they had the control of all the point of sale system, all the digital signage, all the menu tablet they were using under their control.
Wow, that is pretty cool to have that type of control just by plugging in a box and then being able to remotely manage it.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about before too was security. One of the nice things about the a couple of the open source versions, as well as the black box that we sell, is that it's running a version of Linux called Ubuntu Core. And the nice thing about Ubuntu Core, and Giancarlo, I'll let you go into details about this because it's beyond my level. But what I will say is that we have the ability to push real-time updates to not only the Domotz agent itself, that network agent that's running on the black box, but we also can push updates to the kernel. The nice thing about pushing updates to the kernel is if for some reason there is a security vulnerability that gets exposed, we can actually push this to tens of thousands of agents within a matter of hours.
Yeah, that's a very true statement. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Canonical invited us to their annual analyst day to present our solution, our use case, specifically for the this kind of system. No, so every time there is like a patch to the kernel, upgrading those kind of system might take months. In our case, upgrading tens of thousands of our boxes takes like less than 6 hours. From the kernel to the OS, and then as JB mentioned, also to the software. I mean, the software is the easiest part. Upgrading the kernel is always the most complicated one. So they have developed, Canonical has developed this operating system based on, it's a sort of containers, it's sort of Dockers. Every single part of the system is containerized, including the kernel. So the kernel is a small package, and then there is OS, bigger one, and then every single application is a separate one. And they have built a system to upgrade every single one of these and allow an automatic upgrade and an automatic rollback if something fails. So it's completely transactional upgrade.
Giancarlo, one of the things that I think we should touch on, and then, well, let me say two things I think we should touch on, is in this IoT world, being able to securely log in to each individual device or do things like VPN on demand, like we've enabled in our system, I think becomes important. I want you to touch a little bit on that, but then the second thing that I think, well, why don't you touch on that first, and then we'll get to the.
Oh yeah, thanks. So I was mentioning before that one of the way of doing troubleshooting or actually resolving some issues in the OT world was the reboot. But before doing that, or in parallel, you actually can think of getting into a web service of a device to reconfigure it or see if something changed. So, for instance, in the when you have an access point which is not managed through the cloud, we have tons of names there. Usually, to change the SSID, to change even a channel, to do any kind of change, you need to be on the same network. So usually MSP, they tend to use TeamViewer or their own RMM to jump into the device, but it's a long way to go to the access point, through sharing desktop and then go to the access point from that local desktop. What Domotz has built is a way to create a secure channel from our software, the agent, and the end device that brings the channel to the cloud, and you can connect to the cloud, and basically the idea is that it's like you are on the same network and you jump to the web interface of that device. In the case of the access point,
and let me touch on that, because going back to a question that I think Jeff asked 20 minutes ago, which was how could service providers, how could managed service providers start to monetize this? And Paco mentioned what Luis is doing, so I want to roll it into this secure connectivity that we do. Domotz, when we scan the network, when we discover that we have OnViv-based cameras, so OnViv is a protocol that a lot of security camera manufacturers leverage in order to be able to, or I guess I should say, be agnostic to their own platform, that allows a security camera of one type to talk to a network video recorder of a different manufacturer type. Domotz leverages that protocol, and we use our secure connectivity to be able to not only see that the security camera is online, we also can show you that it's functioning properly. We can grab snapshots from the streaming images coming from the camera. We can capture the video and show that. So you get the benefit of being able to see that the camera's online, functioning properly, pointing in the direction that you expect it to be, not covered up, not painted over. So for heavily regulated industries, or for people that are concerned about their security cameras working properly, this does become a money-making opportunity through this capability here. So I wanted to make sure we touched on that. The second thing, Giancarlo, that I think is going to be very important for this audience has to do with integrations, right? And what we're doing with respect to TSA tools that are out there.
Yeah, very good points, JB. So
usually gotten into, but please speak to that.
So one of the very good point of this world is that a tool is so powerful as far as it can integrate with other tools, because I can imagine that no one is using just one single software for everything, and the more integration that the software can offer to other software that the MSP uses, it makes the life of the MSP easier. And that's why, and this is a recent move from us, we have focused most of our development activity into integrating with other MSP tools. We started in October, November last year, integrating with the ticketing system like Zendesk, Freshdesk, and other very general purpose ticketing system. But we are also looking at a company like Datto for Autotask PSA. And as a matter of fact, we just released a very cool integration with the Autotask PSA 10 days ago. Basically, whatever happens on the Domotz side, if Domotz discover an issue, a security issue, or a device changing IP and it's not expected, or a device which doesn't respond to ping in a certain amount of time, Domotz creates automatically a ticket on the PSA tool, on the Autotask PSA, and it updates that ticket if something more happens until an operator manages the ticket and closes the ticket. And then if it opens again, it will also link back, oh, this same device had an issue also yesterday. Better you get all the history of those kind of tickets. So this is the kind of thing that we are bringing. And we'll bring more and more integration during the next few weeks and months, working with ConnectWise, Manage, IT Glue.
I want to point out that I'm extremely proud of our engineering team. They have done an amazing job of getting these integrations, and they're turning these integrations out very quickly. In fact, I would encourage anybody that's listening to this podcast to, whether they leave comments or send a message to support at Domotz to say what tools you want us integrating with, because we try to turn that out very quickly. Giancarlo made a comment here, which I think is important. And I want to state that when we were demonstrating the Autotask integration and how we did that, and the referencing back to older tickets, the Autotask team that was looking at that said, "That's amazing. I haven't seen anybody else doing that. And would you mind if we, talk about this with others?" So
it's a best practice,
Yeah, as a best practice. It was great because he recognized that that's a very powerful tool for anybody who's trying to troubleshoot systems on the network. So
Thanks, JP. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, one of the cool things, and this is starting from the beginning of Domotz, we had already the idea Domotz need to be flexible and open to integration. So, and this is the reason why the first thing that we put in place was like the backbone of our infrastructure was based on the public on APIs, RESTful API. So whatever we have, we offer in the web GUI or in the desktop app or in the mobile app is all based on RESTful API, which are accessible to any MSP that want to build his own dashboard or his own script to extract information out of Domotz. So everything, all the information available there can be extracted to those API. And even every single alert can be received through the mean of, technically speaking, what we call a webhook. So they can create their own web server and they can receive the stream of information on that web server directly from Domotz.
Yeah, that's what I was exactly going to say, that the webhooks and you have the integration with Slack and even in email as well. So how I have it right now until hopefully you guys build the integration with Synchro MSP, wink, wink, content. But basically how I have it set up now is the email will go ahead and into our inbox that has the GUID ID for the email to create a ticket and kind of go from there. And then we use Slack for notifications as well. So those two have been really helpful for on our side is what we've used in those integrations for our system and on our side.
Yeah,
that's great. That's great. Synchro MSP is definitely
it's in our list. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I have to say we've been talking a lot. I appreciate the time. Are there any other specific things that you feel that Giancarlo or myself should touch on?
Paco, do you have any questions?
So it's funny. So I wrote down a bunch of stuff, and
we've pretty much covered.
Right. So we talked about real-time alert. Well, I think real-time alert. So the security cameras was a feature I saw. I didn't understand as much, but you went into that was a great thing. I need to implement that for a lot of my manufacturing clients. The specific one is if we could talk about real-time alerts. I think that's a big piece on when something comes on the network. That was a very big piece that I've been looking into on whether it be on my UTM or network capability products or whatever. And I know that Domotz does that. And if we maybe go into a little bit more of that, because I think that's a great revenue generator at that specific feature alone on getting real-time alerts when someone plugs something into the network and whether allowing them, denying them, or just having a quality control call to the client just to determine what it is.
Yeah, let me touch on that. And Giancarlo, you can speak to some of the finer details. One thing that's nice about having a single network agent that is effectively scanning the network continuously is that it's one giving you really, let's call it an inventory of all the devices that are out there. And the beauty of that is that while it's continuously scanning, it's also looking for when new devices show up. In certain situations, You can imagine a VLAN where you have security cameras or a security system with access control where it should be fixed, right? Nothing should be on that. The only things that should be on it are what's on it at the time of install, and then nothing else is on it. If something gets on it, you should be alerted to it. Domotz absolutely provides that capability. You may want to also just know for your standard managed network or your data network, what's going on that. Are people coming on and off of that in a way that you don't expect or shouldn't be? You can gain alerts on that. Primarily from a monitoring perspective, the idea behind Domotz is that we, when we're first activated, right, and we're first communicating with their cloud, we're scanning the network, using our FING database and that infrastructure to classify all the devices. What we're then doing is pinging every single device on that network to make sure that they are there when they're supposed to be. And if they're not, you can set up alerts. One thing I want to point out here is that when it comes to setting up alerts, no alerts are set up by default, okay? You actually need to go in and configure those, because one thing that happens in an IoT world is that if all alerts were just set up by default to on, you may be overwhelmed if you're looking at guest networks or your iPhones coming on and off the network. So we let you
stop.
Yeah. Giancarlo, do you want to speak to some of the details about how we scan that, and maybe talk about how you can adjust the
frequency, the time window, There is one thing I want to mention is that it's true that we don't set the alert for real-time alert automatically. What we do, we classify in a certain way what we think it's important to be always online on network. And when we create the dashboard, we mark those devices according to our FING database as the ones that are important, that should be always online. And then if you want to set an alert on those, you can do that in one single click. But as JB was mentioning, there are devices that might not always reply to ping, might just lose some ping here, now and there. It's not a big issue for sometimes. So when you set alert in Domotz, you can even specify, okay, send me an alert only if it loses pings for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, or because you know that in the night it's rebooting or something, and you don't want to be alerted in the night, or for whatever reason, you can enlarge this grace period for the device to be unresponsive.
Low power Wi-Fi devices
they usually do that, yeah. And when we think about ping, it's true that we monitor the alive status of the device if it replies to the ping, but we also monitor the performance of the device on how fast the device is replying to ping. And we create a baseline of the response time of every single device, so that if the device goes above that baseline for a certain amount of time during the day, you can be notified that there might be a delay, or there might be an issue on that specific device at that time, or even if it starts losing packets during the day or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Very good. That's perfect. So,
my final question, and then I'll kick it over to Jeff, is I know that we talked about it a little bit before the show, but just come to find out that the Domotz boxes are brandable, meaning you can have your own logo on the box and whatnot. Is there a delay in delivery when you want those brandable with your logo after the initial time, that I assume, because there's going to be some time for setup and all that sort of deal?
Absolutely. So a couple caveats with that. First of all, you can purchase the Domotz boxes through partners. You can also purchase it through Amazon. So we can't be as fast as Amazon if we're printing up custom logos. So there's usually, just to set expectations, there's really somewhere between 21 and 30 days of delay in order to get things printed, assuming that we have artwork. The other thing for people to be aware of is, while you can purchase the boxes on Amazon for $99, if you want to get these customized with your logo, then you do need to purchase a minimum order quantity of 25, and it's through Domotz directly. So in that situation, you'd want to reach out to Domotz or sales@domotz.com, and we will take care of you there. Yeah.
And then other piece to that, and then I'll let Giancarlo talk, is the Domotz platform brandable as far as white label?
So, Giancarlo, let me touch on this. From the NOC perspective, meaning the map view, in fact, we encourage people to use that for showing to their customers how they manage all of the different sites. The NOC itself is brandable with your logo. In fact, we have also, and we didn't talk about this in great detail, but we have customized reporting features that are possible within Domotz, and those reports are brandable. So fundamentally, it's important to recognize that Domotz is meant to be a tool for you as a managed service provider or you as an integrator or IT professional. And, it's really, while it's not, the tool itself cannot be, white labeled, it's really meant to be easy for you to use and simple for you guys to gain access to and have remote connectivity to your solutions. The reason that we put or allow the branding of the black box that we sell is because a lot of times clients or our customers' clients will look at that box and wonder what it is. So rather than trying to point them to the Domotz website or have the client go look at what Domotz is and see that it's simply $19 a month, that's not what it's about, right? For us, it's about your brand. And in fact, a lot of times, and you'll see this in a lot of our webinars, we're talking to service providers and integrators and telling them, hey, don't put a line item of Domotz on your quote. It's not about the Domotz brand, right? Domotz is meant to be a tool to help you guys sell your services. And as I said at the very beginning, be more operational efficient, eliminate truck rolls, be proactive. How you do that is up to you. We hope that you leverage a tool like Domotz and it integrates well into your other PSA tools and other tools you use for more traditional RMM. But it's about making you guys more efficient and better. That's what we're really about.
So I do have a question that I was just thinking about. When it comes to setting up your first Domotz box, whether it be you install the software or you actually buy a black box, from your guys' opinion, and obviously you guys are experts at this and you've used it for a while, so you would know the inside and outs. But for a brand new person, if they were going to set this up, what period of time or how much time do you think it would actually take them to get something set up that they could actually deploy to their customer? And then once you set up one for a customer's network, is it kind of just something that you can kind of rinse and repeat on other customers' networks?
So I'll give my answer, and then Giancarlo, you can chime in. So as with any tool, there's always a learning curve. But if you remember back to how we originally got started and what our intent was, it was to make it easy to be able to monitor and manage these networks. When you go to set up the agent, whether you install it through a NAS drive like Synology or QNAP, or if you do the black box itself, all you need to do is create an account. You already have a 21-day free trial on that account for the first time you set it up. But then you log into the box itself through its IP address, or you can even use the Domotz app, the mobile app, to discover that device on the network. Once it's discovered, you put in your account credentials, and then it starts to work for you automatically. In cases where, and I bring this up, it gets asked a lot, but in cases where you're using managed switches and the SNMP community strings are unique, they're not necessarily defaulted to public or private, you need to make sure you tell us that information. But once we have that, we start discovering all the devices, we start mapping the network for you automatically. The only thing you have to do is decide where devices are residing, what are their locations, what zones. Giancarlo, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the time it takes to fully configure a site, and it brings me back to the idea that Best Buy had to deal with this in thousands and thousands of homes, and they were sending technician in the home, putting the box or putting the software. It runs also on some routers. The software enables the software, and they have to spend at home like 10 to 20 minutes to configure Domotz, not more, because otherwise they spend a lot of time there. And so that's how long it takes Domotz to be fully configured. setting up all the alerts, setting up all the see all the ports mapped in the switches. If you use PDU, you need to configure which device is configured on each outlet of the PDU, because it's true that we can read IP and we can read information out of the managed switch. We cannot read out of the PDU what power, which is the device that is powered through the PDU or the UPS. But that's exactly what you need to do. Set the locations of the devices and eventually set the outlet of the PDU and the alert. And you're done. The site is configured and you're starting getting proactive alerts or starting having a possibility to remote into the device. And then the tool continues to monitor devices for pinging, continue to monitor the network for perimeter scan for security purposes, identify security camera and automatically open the driver for the security camera, or automatically enable the other drivers that we have developed for Wi-Fi access points or other devices that we have.
All right, excellent. Paco, any other questions that you can think of or anything we need to?
No, I answered a majority of what I could in the chat there. There is one from Computer Pro that might be we can bring up about the use case question about mapping a network for as like a technician license. Not sure. I'm not sure if that would be a conversation for Computer Pro to talk to the guys directly about. But
my recommendation on that, it's hard to grab the context based on what was being asked there. I think it might be easier for, if anybody has other questions from a technical perspective, I absolutely encourage people, send a note to support@domotz.com. Giancarlo's team on there is amazing. I've worked for a few different companies in my life, from large corporations to really small companies. And I am absolutely amazed at our support team. And I'm amazed at our development team. And our founders and Giancarlo has done a great job of building out that organization. And they're very technical and they can answer a lot of good questions there. So support@domotz.com is where I would start if we didn't answer the question today.
Yeah, support's been great. I think when we first started out, I kind of abused that trial period because I never got the chance to log into the system. And I think even Giancarlo, I think you were the one that helped me extend a couple times because I just didn't have time to get into it. And I really did want to. And I finally got into it. And the questions I asked of the support team, and they've been great on that part too. So
thanks.
So that being said, one of the things that we wanted to extend to any of your listeners that are out here, because sometimes we recognize that 21 days may not be enough. We wanted to extend an offer for 3 months of our full featured service. If they send a code, I think the code is going to essentially be MSP Unplugged -Domotz-March 20, and send it to support@domotz.com, and we'll take care of you guys. Okay, it can be activated on any new agent that you install out there. So, and Jeff, I assume we can put that in the notes as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, appreciate that. That is awesome. Yeah, so you heard it here, folks. All right, so if there's no other questions, let's go ahead and get one more
for you, Jeff. Yeah, sorry for extending this out.
Oh, you're fine.
Just so you know, my family was watching the podcast, and they were actually watching it on probably the Apple TV or something. But my younger son absolutely wanted to know where you got the frozen Han Solo in the background there. So
that's a great question. It's actually I don't know if you guys have heard of the company Fatheads, and it's a decal sticker company. They have all kinds of life-size stuff, all kinds of smaller stickers and whatnot. I actually bought it on Amazon. I have it on Amazon to give them.
In 2 days, I'm about to have one of those. We'll see.
Very cool. And I'll definitely, a couple other people asked too, so I'll definitely put a link in the show notes with that to the Amazon, so people can find it there. So with that, JB, is there if you want to give people a way that they can get a hold of you, what's the best place to go, all that kind of stuff. And obviously you guys have already given the promo code there. We'll add that in notes.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, domotz.com. That's DOMOTZ.com. I invite you to check out our website. That's where you can actually start up with the 21-day trial as well. If you have questions from a sales perspective or channel perspective, by all means, reach out simply to sales, SALES, at domotz.com. And then if you have technical questions or you want to take advantage of that promo code, by all means, reach out to support, SUPPORT, at domotz.com. That's I think the best way to get started. Oh, I did want to mention one more thing. Giancarlo talked about, and I've mentioned several network switch brands, even wireless access points. We've also talked about PDUs. I would encourage you guys to visit our community and see what's out there. We have a large community. It's community.domotz.com, where you can get information about PDUs that we support, networks that we support, as well as third-party equipment in general that we may have other advanced drivers for. Giancarlo, is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's a very good point, because another thing that I'm happy to work with the other guys in Italy, the other engineer, the rest of the engineering team. It's pretty fast in integrating things and bringing new features. I would say every 2 weeks there is always something new. And as a matter of fact, probably in a 2 or 3 weeks frame, there will be like 2 or 3 new features. I can mention a couple which are very cool. I believe the third one is still top secret, let's say, but one, it will be the integration with the Microsoft Team. So not only the Slack channel will be notified, but also on Team. And then there will be the possibility to customize the report so that you can select which information you want to put in the monthly report that we generate, and we put your logo, the MSP logo on top of that one. There will be also the section inside the report with all the activity logs. So whatever the MSP has done during the month will be included in that report. So I have remote into the access point, or I have switched this security camera on off, or whatever, or I put simple note. It will be logged there, and in the monthly report will be traced. And then there will be a third feature I will keep as a secret. So you go on the forum.
Don't give away all our secrets.
Sorry?
Don't give away all our secrets.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Those two are simple ones for myself, but third one is cool.
Very cool.
So visit the forum, you will get information there. I mean, we publish release notes. We usually collect release notes like every 1 month or 1.5 months, and we put all together. But new features are there really every 2 weeks.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you gentlemen coming out this fine evening and sharing Domotz with us. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience is going to learn a lot from listening and sometimes even watching this show live. But I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have you guys on again, down the road, and kind of see what you guys are up to, and I'll talk about new features and stuff like that. So,
excellent. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you, Paco.
Thanks,
Paco,
thanks, Jeff.
No problem. Paco, if people want to find out more about you, where could they go?
Well, they need to go September 25th to the 27th to TechCon Unplugged in Grand Rapids, Michigan, over at the Holiday Inn Grand Rapids Airport, if you want to be able to see me in person. Or you can come tune in to this lovely program every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
And you can also watch the show live and hang out in the chat room over on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. You can also subscribe using your favorite podcatcher so you never miss an episode. I want to thank you for subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.